has a hole in it. And that could put a lot of our earthly functions at risk. Dr. Michio Kaku, professor and author of the book Physics of the Impossible, is back with us. Professor, how are you? And good morning to you.
Glad to be on the show.
Thanks. Twice in 1 week, man. It's bonus hour. What is this solar shield?
Well, every 11 years, the sun has a temper tantrum. It releases a shock wave, a tsunami of radiation that could wipe out communication, weather satellites, GPS, spy satellites, you name it, it's up there in outer space.
So you're saying that my BlackBerry won't work?
The internet, Fox, television, cable, satellite TV, all of it could get wiped out around 2012. That's when we have the peak of the sunspot cycle. That's when the sun's magnetic field flips. North Pole and South Pole flip, releasing a shock wave of radiation, which will then hit the Earth minutes later, potentially wiping out a good chunk of our satellite communications. We're watching it very carefully now.
Well, Doc, this happens how often, you say?
Every 11 years.
Well,
However,
why an 11-year cycle?
It takes 11 years for the magnetic field of the sun to build up enough intensity to begin the flip process, because it slowly revolves in a circle. It's like winding up the windings of a clock. If you wind up the mainspring of a clock too much, it boing, comes out of control. Same thing with the sun's magnetic field. It literally flips every 11 years, releasing a shock wave of radiation, and that means we have to start to think about reinforcing our satellites, building redundant systems, because it means that GPS, the power grid, weather satellites, communication satellites, satellite television, all of that could get disrupted, peaking around 2012.
So your point is we can't do anything about it in space, but we can do something back here on Earth.
That's right.
But backup systems, are companies really doing that?
Well, they're going to have to do it because, see, we scientists made a mistake. We thought that the next cycle was going to be quiet. Well, some of our data was off by a factor of 20, and that's why we're issuing this alert now. We made a mistake. The next cycle, peaking around 2012, will be much more serious than we previously thought. Now, in the past, we dodged the bullet because we didn't have that many satellites up there 11, 22 years ago. Back in 1990, we didn't have that many space satellites.
Well, that makes sense to me. But, you know, I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, why 2K? I'm thinking it's just a tactic that put a lot of fear in a lot of people. It may have gotten us ready, but there was really no danger in the end.
Well, let's hope that it's a dud. Let's hope that nothing happens. However, what if our communication systems are wiped out? Billions of economic activity could be
do you think anyone's taking this seriously?
I think we're going to have to. The physicists are now sounding the alert. We made the mistake. We made the wrong projection. The next solar cycle will be more intense than previously thought, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now's the time to begin to create redundant systems, reinforce our satellites, build backup systems.
All right. Michio Kaku, the word is out. You know, if you render my BlackBerry useless, that's okay. I'm here loud. Do that for a while, and we'll bring it back. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Nice to know. Meg?
Love him.
Were you
He's
listening?
Great. Yes.
You were?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Physicists messed it up, and now they have to fix it. And he talked about the Department of Redundancy Department.
Right. Talk magnetic fields, polar opposites,
we gotta fix
sun,
it down
Earth,
here.
right?
When's it going to happen?
11 years apart. 2012 is the next one.
Okay.
So the last one was minor. So the scientists are to blame for that because they underestimated the power. And they think this time it could be the big one.
I think he is the most understandable physicist I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. Am I wrong? You guys love him? I think we...
When we physicists look in outer space for alien life, we don't look for little green men. We look for Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 civilizations. A Type 1 civilization has harnessed planetary power. They control earthquakes, the weather, volcanoes. They have cities on the ocean. Anything planetary, they control. That's Type 1. A Type 2 civilization is stellar. They've exhausted the power of a planet, and they get their energy directly from their mother star. They just don't get a suntan on a weekend. They use solar flares. They use the power of the sun itself to energize their huge machines. Eventually, they exhaust the power of a star, and they go galactic. They harness the power of billions of stars within a galaxy. Now, for example, Buck Rogers would correspond to a Type 1 civilization, a planetary civilization. Star Trek and the Federation of Planets, who have colonized a few star systems, would correspond to a Type 2 system. And the empire of Star Wars would correspond to a type 3 civilization. Now, what are we on this scale? We are type 0. We don't even rate on this scale. We get our energy from, not from stars or galaxies, we get our energy from dead plants, oil and coal. But we can calculate when we will attain type 1 status, in about 100 years. Now, every time I read the newspaper, I see evidence of this historic transition from type 0 to type 1. And I am privileged to be alive in the most important era in the history of the human race, the transition from type 0 to type 1. I read the newspaper, and I see evidence of this everywhere. What is the European Union? The European Union has been formed to oppose NAFTA, that is, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. But why? Because we're seeing the beginnings of a type 1 economy. Huge planetary trading blocks are the beginnings of a type 1 economy. And what language will this type 1 economy speak? Everywhere I go around the world, I find that the elites all speak English as a second language. In the future, the planet Earth will be like that. Everyone will speak their own native language, but on top of that, there will be a type 1 language, probably English. There's also going to be a type 1 culture and a type 1 political system as well. You can go anywhere on the planet Earth and show people pictures of two individuals that are instantly recognizable by any human, Madonna and Arnold Schwarzenegger. In other words, we're talking about Hollywood movies. We're talking about rock and roll, rap music, blue jeans. That's going to be the planetary culture of the planet Earth. And what is the Internet? The Internet is the beginning of a type 1 telephone system. That's all it is. And so this transition is perhaps the most important transition of all time. Some people don't want it. They fear this transition because this transition is to a planetary civilization tolerant of many cultures. These are the terrorists. In their gut, they fear this because they know they are witnessing the birth pangs of a beginning of a new planetary civilization, and the terrorists want nothing to do with it. This transition is also the most important because it's not clear if we're going to make it. When we look at outer space, we see no evidence of type 1, 2, or 3 anywhere. No evidence whatsoever. The mathematics say that there should be thousands of type 1, 2, and 3 civilizations in the galaxy. We see no evidence of any whatsoever. And why is that? Because the transition from type 0 to type 1 is the most dangerous of all transitions. We may not make it. It's a race against time. On one hand, we have the forces of integration, the forces of tolerance, a multicultural fabric emerging before our eyes. On the other hand, we have weapons of mass destruction, germ warfare, nuclear warfare, also the rise of international terrorism. They are obstacles to reaching a type 1 civilization. So in other words, perhaps they didn't make it in outer space. If one day we have starships and visit other star systems, perhaps we'll find planets whose atmospheres are irradiated or whose atmospheres are too hot to bear life because they did not make the transition from type 0 to type 1. Now, by the time you're type 2, you are immortal. Nothing known to science can destroy a type 2 civilization. Even a supernova cannot destroy a type 2 civilization. They'll either move their home planet or they'll simply stop the nuclear fires from exploding. And by the time a civilization becomes galactic, they may in fact have the ability to control the fate of the galaxy itself. By the way, if you're type 3, you will explore the galaxy not by sending Captain Kirk on an Enterprise hopping from star system to star system. That would take millions of years to explore the Milky Way galaxy. The way you do it is you would create a robot. Have the robot land on a moon. It would create a factory. It would make millions of copies of itself on this moon, which is quite stable, and send these to other moons. Then each of these would create another factory, starting with one robot, you would have a million, then a million million, and a million million million, until you had a sphere expanding near the speed of light containing trillions of these robots. They would land on the moon and simply wait. Wait for a type 0 civilization to become type 1. Now, where have you seen that before? This is the basis of the movie 2001. The movie 2001 is perhaps the most authentic rendition of the encounter of a type 0 civilization with a type 3 civilization. Now, at the beginning of the movie, Stanley Kubrick interviewed many leading astronomers and scientists, and we laid out this scenario, that the most efficient way to colonize a galaxy is to send robots, have them land on the moon, and create a factory, and then they would shoot out and colonize other moons. But at the last minute, Kubrick cut the first 5 minutes of his own film, and the film became super mystical. But the next time you see that movie, realize that the monolith on the moon is perhaps a remnant of a passing type 3 civilization waiting for our type 0 civilization to become type 1. And how long before we have an operating moon base capable of detecting such a monolith? Perhaps 100 years. So again, the generation now alive and our grandchildren are the most important generations ever to walk the surface of the earth. We are the generations that will determine whether we make the transition from type 0 to type 1 or we destroy ourselves because of our arrogance and our weapons.
Sometimes the DC boys are out in space, right? What is that on screen? No astronomer has seen this before. Scientists say they're clueless about what it might be. A meteor, a star, clearly a UFO, as in unidentified. Michio Kaku is a theoretical physics professor and host of the new Science Channel series Sci-Fi Science, Physics of the Impossible, Tuesdays at 10 o'clock, renewed for a second season. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Back on the screen, what is it?
We don't know. We are stumped. Scientists around the world are saying, what the heck is this object? It doesn't fit any of the profiles of the usual suspects. That's the problem.
The usual suspects are comet, meteor,
Stars, galaxies, planets.
How about some sort of alien dealio? You buy into that?
Well, you know, the object is about the size of the Rose Bowl Stadium. So it's too small to be a planet or a star or a galaxy. And it's not a comet. There's no gas in the tail of that comet. It's not a meteor because it's not inside the Earth's atmosphere. So what is it? We're scratching our head. The only thing we can think of at the present time is a once-in-a-lifetime event, the collision of two asteroids in space. We've never seen that before, creating a starburst of debris. And if that theory is correct, it means with the weeks, the starfish should get bigger and bigger and eventually fade away.
So the asteroid collision, it may have happened before. We just have not seen evidence of it.
This is the first time it's been caught on camera, if it is an asteroid collision.
And what would that mean to folks like you? You would study that to figure out what, Michio?
Well, we realize that asteroids are predictable. We know exactly where they are going around the sun. But if they collide, it's a game changer. We think that may have wiped out the dinosaurs. There was a cosmic collision about 100 million years ago. Debris was sent all over the asteroid belt, and one piece, get this, one piece hit the Earth from that collision about 65 million years ago, and that's when the dinosaurs died in perhaps just 1 year. So we think that an asteroid collision, a big one, probably wiped out the dinosaurs.
Wow, so that would be significant for people like you, because what happened was, I guess some folks saw this deep in space and they said, you need to check that out. So we took the Hubble telescope and we pointed it in this direction, and now we have these brilliant pictures.
That's right. A month ago, we spot this little speck doing all sorts of shenanigans that it shouldn't be doing. The Hubble Space Telescope zooms in on it, and our jaws hit the floor. At that point, we're saying...
Now, it's called the P/2010 A2. And you say that's short for...
We are clueless.
Nicely done. So we have to learn a lot more about these asteroid collisions. That tells a lot about our future, right?
That's right. And they're random. We don't know where they come from. And if the debris hits the Earth, they're unpredictable. And we think the dinosaurs got wiped out precisely in this way.
Only if they had the Hubble. Come on. Tuesday night, 10 o'clock. Check him out on the Science Channel. Michio, thank you very much.